I'm in Brazil.
Yeah, we talked
Um,
about that. Brazil.
yeah, so I've been here. A place called, well, it's actually called Caraguatatuba, which it's a beautiful beach city. It's on the coast. It's a beach town as such. Um, and yeah, I've actually we've only just moved here a couple of months ago, but we were in Sao Paulo, which we're still in the state of Sao Paulo, but we were in Sao Paulo city, and now we've decided to move to the beach, basically. And but I've been in Brazil 5 years in total now. So
Wow.
yeah.
Why
Yeah.
Brazil?
Well, main reason my wife's Brazilian, and well, what happened? It's a long story. I'll try and keep it short. Basically, my wife's Brazilian, and we were living in UK, and she wanted to come to university here. So we decided to come back here whilst for the period of time that she was at uni. And in the end, we decided to stay beyond that, so we were only going to stay for that period of time and then go back again or go to Germany or wherever. She's got a German passport as well. But in the end, we decided we liked the beach and stuff so much, we decided to stay here. Um, but never say never. But yeah, it's home. It's been home for a while now, I must admit.
Cool.
But yeah,
Beautiful place to live.
yeah, it's
Stunning.
yeah, I mean, it's very hot, I
Yeah.
must admit. And coming from England, kind of not used to it really. But the rain I'm used to, and I never we get an awful lot of rain here, and I never expected it. Nobody ever told me about the rain. No one ever mentions rain in Brazil for some
I
reason.
didn't realize it rained so much there.
Yeah, yeah. I think it depends perhaps where you are in the country because it's so big. But yeah, I mean, it really. I mean, the difference seems to be in England. It rains. It doesn't rain very hard, for example, just drizzles for a long, long time. But here, when it rains, it really rains. It's torrential.
Wow.
Um, and it can come and go very quickly.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah,
Cool.
it does rain for sure, which was a surprise, I must
Wow. Well,
admit.
best of luck in
Yeah.
the storm.
Thank you, sir.
Um,
You're in Boston, are you?
I am in Boston. Yeah, it's
Ah,
actually raining here too, so really
right,
can't catch a
right.
break anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never
Uh,
been to Boston, but I'm sure it's very nice.
it's very nice. It fluctuates a lot, you know. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
pouring, sometimes it's really nice.
Yes.
Sometimes it's like 40, the next day it's like 95, you know. It's all over the
Mhm.
place. Very
Yeah.
annoying. I am currently trying to get out of here, but it works for now. It's also the most expensive place to live in the
Is it?
country. Yeah. More
Is
than New
it?
York, California.
I wouldn't
It's
have thought.
yeah.
Is it your hometown as such?
It's just Massachusetts, the state alone.
Right.
I'm like an hour out of Boston actually. In
Yeah.
more the
That's right.
woodsy area, but it's
Yeah.
still like a mess. You know, the
Mm.
rent is just
Mm.
ridiculous. But
Yeah.
Brazil must is probably a lot better. Just
Well, Brazil
environmentally
is.
wise, the people.
There's a lot wrong with Brazil, but there's a lot wrong everywhere. People here seem to think the UK is some kind of paradise, which is ridiculous because it's not.
Mm,
UK too is very expensive. We went back for 6 weeks earlier this year, and I couldn't believe how expensive everything had become. Really,
wow.
I mean, energy prices and stuff, mainly because of Ukraine and reliance on Russian oil and gas, which we used to have, which that
Yeah.
we don't have anymore. So you have to it's alternative sources and stuff, which push prices right up. So
Ridiculous. Absolutely
yeah.
ridiculous. Well, we do have a lot to talk about.
Yes, indeed, sir. Yes, when you're
Yes.
ready. Yeah, cool.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you know, I feel like we've pretty much already started. That was a great
Hmm.
some learning right there, you know, because a lot of the bands, you know, Jaguar, and I know you're not like very prominent on social media, You know, the band is itself, but I know all the members are off kind of doing their own thing. So it is cool to get a little bit of like that peek behind the curtain, like what you're currently up to. I'd love to learn some of the early days and kind of work our way up. I'd
Yes,
love
of
to
course.
know like what made you like pick up a guitar and like really want to pursue being a musician. Was there like a defining moment for you?
Well, it was. I mean, I don't. It was. I think it was. It was just a. I was an early starter, if you like, of love. You know, developed an early love of like serious music. You know, I was very, very young. Looking back, you know, for example, like you know, I remember going to see Leonard Skinner in Bristol. I grew up in Bristol, in the south of the UK, my home city. I remember going to see Leonard Skinner when I was like 14. Lots of bands when I was 14. You know, even you know, like I remember seeing Thin when I was 15. Thin Lizzy,
Cool.
AC/DC, tons and tons of bands. I just think I started very young, looking back, and you know, of course, you know, I posters of Michael Schenker and stuff on my wall. And I don't know, I suppose he just thought, well, I'd like to have a go at that, I guess. And you know, I was still at school, still at high school. And when you know, a guy I was really, really friendly with at high school could play the guitar. And you know, I said, look, can you show me? You know, and so that's really where it started, from kind of pestering my friend really to teach me. And it kind of went on from there, really, I suppose, from the age of 15, 16. Just trying to learn all the time, and you know, kind of forming bands that only last 5 minutes, and you know, they come and go so quick. But really, we just a kid, really. And it wasn't until I met Jeff Cox, the bass player, who became the bass player in Jaguar, that we kind of things became more serious, and we could actually get a band together that kind of lasted, which was a first, really. But certainly up until that point, really just trying to learn my craft. But it was just seeing, you know, band again. It's 78. I saw that Sabbath Van Halen tour that you may have read about. That Van Halen
Yes.
was a support band. I mean, and it was just like, I remember thinking, this is like watching history. I mean, you know, because Van Halen was just, well, what can you say? You know, seeing Eddie Van Halen like that in '78, and my God, what's this? Just
Amazing.
really being inspired all the time. And you know, I used to be quite keen on sports at school, until I discovered music. Basically, until I kind of discovered music seriously, when that happened, I know it sounds cheesy to say so, but everything else just went out the window, and I didn't care about anything else. Sports at school gone, and my teachers, I remember being really angry and stuff. So that was all I cared about, and that was all I kind of spent my time doing, going to shows, playing the guitar, and that was it, really. Uh, Much to my parents' annoyance. I mean, they really didn't like it. Um,
Wow.
but you know, they tried to discourage me all the time. But but yeah, so really, I think, Brandon, it's really just from seeing so many kind of legendary guitar players, I guess, from a very young age, and I just thought, well, I want to do that. And so I think that punk I love punk, I still do. And you know, it again a big influence on me. The Ramones, I still love the Ramones. And you think, well, yeah, just you can do it, just get up and do it. And it was also for me though, it was about the energy of punk. You know, it was the fast, powerful energy of it that I loved. Uh, so I think, yeah, it was all those things that kind of came together, really, I guess.
Wow. Yeah, and
Mm.
that explains where a lot of the fast playing must have come from, right? Like
Yes,
your punk influences.
yeah,
Wow.
for me,
So,
yes.
okay, cool. So, what do you remember about meeting Jeff and like forming Jaguar? Like, what do you remember about the band's formation?
Well, Jeff and I used to work for Rolls-Royce, a company called Rolls-Royce, of course, who make beautiful cars, but they also make airplane engines, or used to. I don't know if they do now. And I met Jeff. And they had their own college, and we were kind of at college together. And I didn't know him before I went there, but it's weird that how like-minded people seem to sort of come together, sort of seek each other out. And it was like, you're a bass player, aren't you? Yeah. And it kind of went from there, really. And we became really, really good friends. And so we kept having to go to work, which was an annoyance, really. But yeah, I met Jeff there at Rolls-Royce College, and we just decided. All we were doing, Jaguar just kind of developed from us trying to put together a band that might last more than a week. It was simply that. And so yeah, Jeff was bass player, guitarist, and so we thought, okay, well, what are we going to do now? Right, let's get a drummer in. So we decided to try and get a drummer in before looking for a vocalist. So that's what we did. We just placed adverts in the local newspapers in Bristol, and one person who answered the advert was Chris Lovell, who became the drummer in Jaguar, but he was only 16 at the time. And I remember we kind of arranged a session, if you like, just a jam, whatever you want to call it, to see if he was any good and whether it might work or what, really. And yeah, I remember he turned up in his mum's car because he couldn't drive. He was too young. So, his mum was sat there doing the knitting while we were kind of blasting away, really. But yeah, so he couldn't drive, and he was just 16, but he had something, and I think it was just because he was just so powerful and just completely raw. But he could just play double bass drums for forever. You just keep going. Which I guess is not easy for a drummer, but yeah. So, and we just thought, oh yeah, this kid's brilliant. We weren't much older ourselves, admittedly, one thing led to another, and he also said, look, my parents, are happy for it. We can rehearse in the cellar of their house. Well, really? It's very noisy. Oh no, they're cool. And so kind of Chris came and brought the rehearsal room for us as well. And they were great. His parents were really proactive and really encouraged him as a son, as a drummer, and us as a band. They were fantastic. We ended up rehearsing underneath their lounge in this little cellar, and like 4 times a week. We were pretty serious about rehearsing in those days. 4 times a week, basically, they sat there with an earthquake underneath them. Seriously.
Yeah. Wow.
And they didn't mind at all. Amazing. And so, I suppose what I'm saying really is Chris Lovell's parents were really instrumental in keeping us going, because having a rehearsal room, if you don't have one and you don't have a proper one, it can be a real pain in the ass, to have it there and for free was brilliant. So
it's a really great thing for a band.
Yeah. And we started writing, tunes, whatever you want to call them, the 3 of us, for a few months. So we would leave, because we didn't want to get a singer and then just not have anything prepared. At least have some riffs or even songs. We had completed songs by that point. So we could say, look, this is how it goes, this is what we want to do, etc. And that's what we did. And so, we the 3 of us used to rehearse 4 times a week, Chris Lovell's cellar, for a few months, and then we decided to look for a singer. We tried a few people out, and our first singer, a guy called Robert Reese, was the guy who sang on Backstreet Woman. and Storm Child. We knew him. There's a whole bunch of people in Bristol. We used to go to like kind of heavy rock discos and stuff like that. And we saw this Rob Rees. We thought he was a bit cocky, but you know, and I think we went up to him and said, we were told you can sing, and he's like, yeah, I can sing. And you know, well, do you want to come and, you know, have a blast with us, you know, kind of thing, as you do. And you know, it's true, he could sing. And so, you know, he ended up joining, and then that's when we had obviously the 4 permanent members. We really kicked on with having that stability. It's all about stability.
Wow. So when you started and you were like writing tunes, do you remember like the first song you wrote, or like the first group of songs? Is that too far back?
Well, I suppose it's the earlier songs were what, some of which ended up on the demo tape that we kind of decided just to sell, just to make money, to make a single, do our own single, was what we wanted to do. And so yeah, there was the song. I don't know if you've ever heard the songs on the demo, Feel the Heat. I mean, actually, one of the earlier songs was Ain't No Fantasy. I think was quite an early song, which we did. We re-recorded it on Power Games. Storm Child was another very early tune. So some of them stayed the course, if you like, over the years of the very first tunes we wrote. Some kind of fell by the wayside, but we used to write so much. It just kept coming out all the time. It was great. We had loads of songs, loads and loads of songs in the very early days.
Yeah. So you were talking about the demo. So how soon did you connect with Neat Records?
Well, there was the demo, first of all, which we just literally went to Bristol, did a couple of hours in the studio, and basically, you know, put it onto cassette and made a cover and stuff, and we were just trying to sell it, you know, to try and get, well, 2 reasons. One, for people to have something to take home from the gigs, if they wanted to, and also to put that money towards, as I said, our original intention was to finance our own single. But what happened was Paul Birch, who was the guy who used to run, I don't know if he still does, used to run Heavy Metal Records. He somehow got hold of the demo, and he called me up actually, and said, look, I'm doing this compilation album. It's called Heavy Metal Heroes, and you know, do you want to do a track on it? And I'm like, whoa, yeah, sure, we'll do that, you know. And he said, oh yeah, we've got a studio just come up in Birmingham, which is the second city in the Midlands, in the UK, there in England. So he said, come up and record it, and yeah, we'll, you know, all these other bands on there, so you'll have a track on there. Let's do that to start with. And so I remember we got in the car. Again, it just lasted on a Saturday morning. We drove up to Birmingham, and the studio basically turned out to be somebody's garage. So far from being a 24-track top state-of-the-art studio, it was someone's garage basically.
Wow.
So you know, but nevertheless, you know, we recorded, we managed to do Storm Child in there, and that's what ended up on Heavy Metal Heroes. And so that kind of came along kind of unexpectedly, if you like.
Okay.
And then, so Paul Birch then turned around and said, okay, do you want to do a single? So we said, sure, okay, yeah, let's do a single. So we did Backstreet Woman, Chasing the Dragon, with Heavy Metal Records again, which was 81. I think that actually kind of came out. So we did that with Paul. Great, the single came out, and you know, it did okay. We're kind of happy with it. It did quite well for us. But in the meantime, we started in late 81. We started to go across to the Netherlands, to Holland, to play shows. Quite often with Raven, actually. We all played a whole bunch of shows in Holland with Raven, and we were just there early. It must have been probably January or February 82. We did a couple of shows with Raven, and Dave Wood, who was the owner of Neat Records.
Yeah.
Guy called Dave Wood, he happened to be there with Raven, and obviously he saw us. We were supporting Raven, so he saw us. And then the following day, after one of the shows, he said, "Look, can we talk?" And I remember in a hotel, and he said, "Look, I really like what you're doing. Do you want to come and do something for me, something for Neat?" And we're like, "Oh my God, Neat Records!" In those days, Neat that was it. Neat were the kind of fathers, the founding fathers of kind of NWOBHM, if you like. And so we were so happy about that. We were really, really pleased. So we kind of drove back to England, like, wow, great. So a couple of weeks later, we then drove up to Neat's. Neat had their own studio in Newcastle. They were based in a city called Newcastle. I'm sure you know it, north of England. We drove up there and we did Axe Crazy. We basically recorded 3 songs there: Axe Crazy, War Machine, and another tune called Dirty Tricks, which actually ended up on a Sounds magazine like tape, 60 minutes plus metal, like a tape they were doing, a mail order cassette. But yeah, so we kind of did this. We did the single first of all, Axe Crazy, with Neat, and then a couple of months later, again, Dave King said, "Look, great, Axe Crazy did really well and stuff. Do you want to do an album?" And so we're like, "Yep, of course we are. Of course we do." So we then, basically, I think it was in October, we went again back up to Neat, October '82, to record the album, Power Games, which of course, according as legend has it, we did it in 5 days. Can you believe that? 5 days.
Wow.
And Dave would not give us a minute longer of recording time. 5 days from nothing to completion. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But he wouldn't budge. He would not. He's like, "Nope, that's it." So, when
there's a lot of songs on that album too.
Well, it was. I mean, like most people, when you listen to your own work, you're your own biggest critic, aren't you?
Yeah.
And your own biggest critic. And I listened to that. I think 5 days. I mean, it could have been so much better, but I mean, it had a rawness, let's say, and it kind of captured the moment, I suppose. But I would have liked a bit longer. We weren't going to go and get an orchestra in. We just wanted a few more, a week or something.
Yeah.
But yeah. But
wow, did you guys sleep at all? Like, was it just non-stop recording?
Pretty much non-stop. Yeah, we were in this little like guest house hotel thing, but there wasn't an awful lot of sleeping. The same when we drove up to record, earlier in the year to record Axe Crazy. We never had any sleep at all. We drove up overnight and then just camped straight, recorded with no sleep at all.
Jeez.
It's the phrase is tough at the top. I've never really understood that. If it's tough at the top, it's 100 times tough at the bottom. Isn't it?
Yeah, I'll drink to that. Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but despite all of that, I've got great memories, of that time, because the difference, when you're young, it just doesn't matter. It's part of the crack of it, when you're young, isn't it? It's like part of the adventure.
Yeah. How old were you during that? During the recording of that album? How old were you? Around
in 80, so the I was 21.
Wow.
When we recorded, yes, I was 21 when we recorded Power Games. So
wow.
Yeah, not very old really compared to now, but but yeah, it was kind of just young excitement, really. I mean, that's all it was. It was brilliant. I think we kind of things started to move again quite young for us, really. I mean, looking back, yeah, I know we blew it, but we did have an opportunity. We were young.
Yeah, do you feel like you really fit into that new wave of British heavy metal scene at all? Do you feel like you were on your own path? You know, what was your relationship with that general scene?
Well, where most of that scene, if you want to call it that, probably existed around in Newcastle. You know, a lot of the bands that kind of came through were, you know, based in the northeast of England, around Newcastle. Venom, you know, Venom, Fist, Raven, Mithra. You know, there were an awful that was where it was almost the centre, if you like. I think of the whole of the whole neat thing and the NWOBHM thing. I mean, of course, Newcastle's quite a good few hours away from Bristol, you know, where we were right in the south. Newcastle's right up in the northeast there. You know, there was no scene as such in Bristol. There was nothing really. It was just us. Onslaught came along later, but you know, maybe a slightly different type of band. But there really wasn't. It was just us, really. We were, I mean, all we were doing was doing our own thing, to be quite honest, you know. And I think, like a lot of, I'm sure Raven will tell you the same thing, that kind of NWOBHM sprang up around us, kind of, you know, by act. It just happened. But really, I'm not sure a lot of the bands, certainly in the early days, were kind of connected or thought about connections, or it's just because, you know, Raven and Venom and all that were doing their thing up there, you know, 300 miles away from us, and you know, we're down there. Some bands in London, whatever, but everyone was quite spread out, actually, thinking about it. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, and really, I mean, we were just doing our own thing. I mean, we were obviously aware of the movement as such, because, you know, in '79, I remember going to see Iron Maiden. There was a very famous rock club in Bristol called the Granary Club. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. A very, very small, kind of great place, small little sweaty club where anyone has ever kind of played there over the years, you know, from the 60s. And Maiden played there in '79. Clive Burr wasn't even in the band then. It was Doug Sampson. They were a four-piece: Doug Sampson, Dave Murray, Steve Harris, and Paul Di'Anno. And they were fantastic. You know, despite what Steve Harris says, you know, about punk, you know, no, not having that, no, punk, no, that's shit. They were almost very punk-like for me when I saw them there. You know, I suppose Di'Anno was more punkish, of course, than a traditional vocalist, I suppose. And they were brilliant, you know. I mean, for me, still now, one of the best things Maiden ever did was the 4 tunes they did on the BBC Radio 1 rock show. I don't know if you remember that I think that was from '79. There was a rock program on the BBC Radio 1, the biggest radio station at the time. And every Friday they used to have this rock show, and a band would go in and do a session, 4 songs. We managed to do it in '84, I think it was. But Maiden did it in '79, and it's some of their best work for me. It's just awesome. You know, you just go in and do it literally in a couple of hours. It's pretty much done live. You do everything live and just tidy up the vocals. But a lot of bands, I think, you know, certainly from the NWOBHM movement, if you want to call them that, their Radio 1 sessions were great, better than their recorded stuff at the time, like Saxon and Sampson as well.
I'll definitely have to revisit a lot of those, because you know, I was born in the '90s, so I never really was alive, and I'm in Boston, you know what I mean? But I've heard amazing things about those sessions. I'll definitely check them out. And even like you were talking about punk, you know, I think it's one band set off this whole thing of, like, you know, the British New Wave. It was, you know, that versus punk. Even Brian Tatler was saying punk was such a huge influence to him.
Right.
So it's really cool to hear that from all these different groups.
Yes. It's almost, Brandon, it's almost like people don't want to admit it. I find, you know, it's beneath them to admit that they like punk and that punk influenced them. I don't know why, but it's a lot of musicians think it's not cool to admit that, as far as my experience, but
Yeah.
not me. Not me. I love, all I saw, all of the band, the Ramones. I saw the Ramones, God knows how many times. They're brilliant. Who cares about how many chords it is or whatever? It's all about the vibe and the energy and stuff. That's what I loved about it. The speed as well.
And time has
Um,
told too, because a lot of thrash bands
mhm.
today play with a lot of punk, so it's
Yeah.
eventually from the new wave of British heavy metal
Mm,
movement dominoed
mm,
effect into this whole
mm,
global thrash thing that has now pretty
mm,
much
mm.
coincided with punk. So at the end of the day, I feel like time
Yeah,
has told, but it
yeah.
is cool that, with the bands all starting out together to hear that there definitely was some crossfire between the two. So
Yeah, and a lot of thrash bands, they've covered punk tunes, haven't they? As bonus tracks. I mean, obviously Metallica have as well, haven't they? And I think it's now become maybe a bit cooler, let's say. And yeah, there's a lots of thrash bands covered punk songs, an awful lot out there.
yeah,
Um,
quite a lot,
yeah,
quite a lot.
yeah,
So after
yeah.
Power Games, I'd love to
Hmm.
know the writing and recording process of this time. I know you referenced it already.
Please
But
no.
I'll be honest,
Mm,
I
yeah.
know, your opinion on it. I do see, so
Mm.
the whole album's on YouTube because it's not on Spotify or any streaming
No, it's
services,
no.
which I understand, knowing your point of
Well,
view. But you look at the
yeah.
comments of that album and a lot of praise.
Mm, mm,
People do really enjoy that record,
mm.
even so many years after. But I know you do see it as just kind of something that stayed in the '80s. What are your thoughts on it all these years later?
Well, I have to say, Brandon, as a record, as a bunch of songs, I'm really proud of it. You see, I used to get really fed up with people, years ago saying to me, oh, what do you changed your style and stuff just completely radically, which obviously looking back was probably not a good idea, but you did it for the money. You went commercial, radio friendly and all of this stuff. That's absolute, excuse my French, that's absolute bollocks. I mean, it was, we were still pretty young at the time, and all that happened was that we wrote one more melodic song, and we liked it so much, we just thought, hang on, that's a much better song in terms of the construction of the song, and we really liked it. It was more melodic, but and it really the change stemmed from myself and Paul Merrill just writing a more melodic song. That was all. We liked it so much and felt that it was just a better song, and the fact that as musicians we were just trying to get better and progress, and we thought, well, we'll write another one and another one, and we just every new song we wrote was in a more melodic vein, and there was no preconception. There was no, oh, let's change for the money. Let's do it for this. Let's do it for that. It just happened. We were just kids. It just happened because it felt good and we liked it. And that's all. And so
Mm.
that's how it happened, just not by accident, but because we liked it, because we liked the more melodic direction. The problem was we never gave our fans a thought in terms of how they're going to react. Are they going to like this, or are they going to disown us? Obviously, I found out what happened. But I think if maybe
Very
someone at the
dedicated
time,
fans, I feel, especially in
yes,
that era of time.
if someone sat us down and said, "Look, guys, I know that you think you're writing better songs and it's sounding great. Don't do this. You're going to throw away everything you've built up so far because the fans they want a more harder form of music you're playing. They're not going to like the more melodic stuff, and obviously that's what happened. But no one sat us down, and we just kind of carried on. And this time again happened by accident. I don't know if you know the story of it, because it came out on Roadrunner, of course. But a Roadrunner signed us without actually hearing any of the songs that we were intending to
Oh,
put
wow.
on this time. So they signed us expecting Power Games 2. And we kept saying, look, you better listen to what we're going to do when we start recording. And they're like, no, it's all right, you carry on. Yeah, here's the money. Boy, did they get a surprise. When someone from Roadrunner flew over from Amsterdam whilst we were in the studio in the middle of recording to finally to have a listen where they put their money, and the guy freaked out. He pulled the plug. He pulled the plug. So we were told to make ourselves scarce. He came into the studio and with the producer, and and then we then get told it's all off. Stop. Recording's off. Roadrunner hit the roof. They were not expecting this, and they pulled the plug on. So it was kind of halfway through. They pulled the plug on it, and so everything stopped for I think at least a day or two afterwards. And the management company, because at that time we were with Motorhead's management company, Doug Smith and Tom Doherty, they basically talked Roadrunner around, and we continued. We carried on. And actually they liked it in the end when we kind of delivered the finished album. They again, we didn't have enough time there. We could have done with more time. They actually kind of came around and they said, "Oh, actually, it was really good." And they had all these big plans. We were going to go and tour Canada with Nazareth, and they were going to put out a 12-inch single and put some money, real push. They didn't. They did nothing.
Wow.
I'm afraid. So
what was the band's mindset at that point?
Well,
were you guys all worried? Were you like, oh, well, I think this is the end of the road here with the label and everything? Yeah, jeez.
They even went as far as getting a guy, he's dead now, the Rolling Stones producer called Jimmy Miller. The guy who produced like the Stones, like the 70s albums, XR Main Street and stuff.
Yeah.
Said Jimmy Miller, and they got him to remix a couple of songs, for this 12-inch single. They went and even did that, and then just sat on it, kind of, and wasted our opportunity to do at least try and do something, and they did nothing, Brandon. So we're kind of blame them really in a way, and so yeah, it was a shame because I think that had they or another record company got behind this time, certainly maybe in Canada or the States, I think it would have done much, could have done quite well. It was getting great reviews, much kind of to everyone's surprise. Kerrang magazine, they loved it. It gave it a great review. Yet Roadrunner just didn't capitalize on any of the good stuff, on the good reviews, the positive reviews. They just did nothing, I'm afraid, it was a damn shame looking back.
That really is unfortunate. A lot of the bands coming out of that movement have very similar stories where like labels and producers really screw them over, which really have hurt the band. A lot of even Raven. So it's really, really unfortunate. So which led to what happened to the band in '85.
Yeah,
I believe it was. Yeah. So what was that year like for you?
Well, we spent 85 basically trying to get out of the Roadrunner deal. But they, strangely enough, despite not doing anything and not getting behind this time, they didn't want to let us go. And every time we kind of complained and said, look, we want to leave the label, they would up the budget for the next record. Quite a bizarre situation.
How long did they let you record for? I hope it was more than 5 days.
It was, we had a month we went back to London. We had a month. We did about 5 days of kind of pre-production. And yeah, so the recording time was about 3 weeks, just over 3 weeks, I think, in the end, which was, yeah, probably 3 or 4 times as much as me in terms of hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we complained a few times, and the manager come back and say, look, Roadrunner really don't want you to leave, and they've upped the budget again. You know, it's like, well, what are we going to do? This is an impossible situation. And we really wanted to leave them, you know, end of story, despite recording budgets. So in the end, the management company convinced them that we'd gone disco. And seriously, and that sounds silly, but they did. That we'd gone disco, and they let us go. They let us out of the contract. So
wow.
And then, but you know, Brandon, you know, things just kind of fizzled out. You know, we lost the momentum, and it kind of, yeah, it was all over by, you know, the end of '85. Really, we just kind of had enough of it, got fed up with it, and it was fed up with fighting all the time to do things. It was a battle, and we just got fed up with it, and so we just, you know, split the band up. Yeah, towards the end of '85, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, and with everything Jaguar went through in that time, like even like the second you guys even met with Neat, I feel like it was just always a constant struggle with you guys. So what happened between '85 and '98? What were you doing in that period?
What happened was I spent some time living in America in 1990. Well, before that, I kind of joined kind of an indie band, basically. It's a band called the Flatmates, who were kind of an indie jingly band, guitar-y band. I joined them for a while because I wanted to do something different. But I left them to go to the States, so I spent some time living in Los Angeles for a while. But my dad was ill. My dad had cancer and eventually died, so I kind of came back and stuff. That kind of ended my American dream. But really, I suppose in that time, you know, tried to do some bits and pieces musically, but again, you know, as I say, just trying to get things off the ground can be so difficult. Got married again, had kids, so just doing the family thing really, until along came Jess Cox, the Tiger singer, who basically bought Neat Records from Dave Wood, kind of renamed it Neat Metal. He kind of, well, this is obviously before the internet and stuff, you know, he kind of wrote me a letter saying, look, you know, I bought the Neat catalogue, etc., etc. I want to re-release Power Games, you know, on CD, on this new thing called a CD. And so, you know, he said, look, you know, do you want to work with me to do it, you know, on the project, to, you know, provide him with photographs and little bits and artwork and stuff like that. So I did that, and you know, he put that out along with all the other Neat reissues. And you know, again, it went okay, it went well, you know, it went well. And so he said, look, do you want to do another album? I said, I don't even know where the rest of the band are. I said, I don't even know if they're still alive. It really was like that. I said, look, I'll see what I can do. You know, you're gonna have to give me some time. I'll see if I can track anybody down. You know, and I really had no idea, because this was before Facebook and all of that, of course. So I had no idea where anybody was, or whether they would be interested or what, really. So, you know, one thing led to another. I managed to track down Jeff Cox. And you know, after talking it over for weeks and weeks and weeks, we decided, okay, let's maybe try and put a version of Jaguar together, and let's maybe do an album if we can. And so yeah, so eventually we found the drummer Nathan and the vocalist Jamie, and yeah, we went and did Wake Me.
Yeah,
yeah, which
Which again,
Well,
like
yes.
I don't think I don't have any problems with. And you guys went on to
Right.
do Wacken a
Wacken, yes,
year in
correct.
'99.
Yes, we did. We did.
Yeah.
I, I, I think we did Wacken before we started recording. I'm pretty sure, or during it. But
Was it
yeah,
before? Okay.
I'm
What
not
was that
sure to be
like
quite
doing
honest. It was
what? Yeah, I
very
believe it
wet.
was '99. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
wet.
I've got. Yeah, it was hot. The weather was terrible. I remember the backstage area being literally like it was a flood. It was just mud. There was
Oh,
3 foot mud, go climbing through mud to get onto the stage and stuff like that. It was great. I mean, luckily we were in a tent. Our stage was in a tent, luckily, and I think people were partly trying to get out of the rain. So the tent, the big tent, was packed. It was brilliant looking out across all these people like, whoa, are they all here to see us? Wow, this is great. And so, yeah, we did back in that year, and I had a great time. It's a great experience. But
how'd
yeah,
it
very
feel
well.
revisiting that music, playing it live again after all those
Um,
years? I guess a
y-
little under a decade or a
yeah,
little
well, yes,
over a
it
decade.
was, wasn't it? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
about it was 13 years actually, I guess, because I hadn't played a Jaguar tune in between that time at all. I had to relearn them. But yeah, it was. I don't know. It seemed it kind of came naturally. I think because Jeff and myself, played together so much, we just immediately kind of locked in together again, and it was great. It was, because Jeff, was my best friend, and I still love Jeff to bits. He's a great guy, Jeff, and a phenomenal bass player. Jeff, I think, was totally underrated. You listen to his bass playing is great, really great. And we kind of locked together, and that was part of the sound. The Jaguar sound was just his playing and my playing just created a kind of a sound, I suppose. But yeah, it was quite natural, Brandon, to be quite honest.
Wow.
It felt good, and it was, I enjoyed doing it, and we played other gigs as well, and it was good to be back, kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah, totally. And
worth it.
it was really awesome to like look at your history and see that as well, like doing whack in a
Mm.
year after. You're
Yeah.
on a Golden Core Records,
Well,
I
yeah,
believe,
every
currently.
album, every album we've done has always been on a different label.
Yeah.
Yeah. That must mean something. I'm not sure what. No one will have us back, perhaps. But yeah, so the last record was Golden Core, who were a subsidiary of a big German label called ZYX Music, kind of dance and stuff like that. But yeah, it was that was Metal X. It was a few years ago now. Where's the time
Yeah,
gone?
yeah,
But yeah,
2014, I believe.
correct. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Came out in
What
2014.
are your opinions on the like to everything like the second era of Jaguar? Because you put out a few albums in that era, like Metal X being the latest one. What
Yes.
is your opinion on that era of the band? Do you kind of
Um,
look down on it? Do you see it like in a highlight? I'm curious what your view on those
hmm.
records are.
um, well, I think I don't know. I think I look at each album. I think I think there's some good songs on each of the records. I don't think they're perfect, but there's some on each of the albums I'm quite proud of. I think what Wake Me didn't was probably not what we should have done, but I do like a couple of the tunes on there. The title track Wake Me, I think is great. I really like that.
Yeah,
The album after that, Run Ragged, I think there's some good songs on there as well, which is perhaps more of a return to our old sort of sound, if you like. Um, but no, I mean, I think unfortunately, Jeff only kind of came back for Wake Me, and he left again. So
yeah,
he didn't get to make any of the other records. But certainly from a musicianship point of view, I think the band, individually anyway, we're all playing better than ever. In terms, bass players. We had a couple of bass players. The last guy we had, Simon Patel, who's my best friend. The guy's another phenomenal bass player. We've been lucky to have great bass players. The drummer, Nathan, again, is brilliant. You know, really, really good musicianship. I think with anybody, it's very difficult to try and recreate the past, though. You know, regardless of who it is, it's
because we're
I just
still
don't think it can't be the same. Even maybe with the same people, it's not quite the same, is it? I don't know. It's difficult, you know, because obviously we're all older now. Myself, you know, bands of Jaguar's generation, some still might have the original lineups from the 80s, but most probably don't. And I think it's difficult to try and recreate, you know, what you had first time around. I don't know.
it is
What do
hard.
you think? You know? Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, we were mentioning these records, and I know I mentioned streaming earlier. Would you ever consider, you know, putting these records out again, maybe giving them an official streaming release? Because I know on all platforms it's just Power Games. Would you
Well,
give these albums any love, or just keep them on YouTube or wherever
well,
people can find them?
you know, there's a few that, you know, of course, as you know, it's all about copyright, isn't it? And with this time, I would love to get this time on Spotify, but it's the copyright's still owned by Roadrunner, and
Okay.
they don't want to know, you know. So that's the problem, is that, you know, they would have to agree to put it up there or allow me to put it up there. That's the problem.
Wow. Okay.
I've actually, the other day I did notice on Spotify. I noticed that yes, Power Games is there, but actually there's a couple of odd songs on there as well. On a like a playlist, on someone's playlist, there was Backstreet Woman was there. I think Storm Child was there as well, which must be kind of unofficial, if you like. Someone had created this new NWOBHM playlist, like 15 hours old. Wow, it was hours and hours
Wow.
of it. And a couple of those songs were there, and I thought, well, that's not official. But that's the problem, Brian. It's bloody copyright, you know. I mean,
It
I mean,
never ends. I feel
well,
with
right,
you
yes.
guys.
I mean, I could put actually in terms of streaming rights, digital rights of Metalette, I could put that up on anywhere digitally because we didn't include digital rights in the contract with Golden Core, and so it was, you know, there. In fact, that the Golden Core contract's coming to an end next year actually. So,
Wow.
but digitally, I could put that. I could put that up on Spotify or anywhere else actually when
Yeah,
it
it's
comes.
just with Spotify, you know, like again,
Mm,
like I didn't grow up with Jaguar and a lot of these
mm,
80s bands. So a lot of
mm.
fans are kind of rediscovering
Yes.
these bands and discovering it for the first time on streaming, you know, and then
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
crazy. It's
yes,
like, wow,
quite.
this band, it wasn't just a one album band, like they
Yeah,
went
yeah,
off to do all this stuff.
yeah,
So
of course.
that's
Yeah.
interesting to know, because I didn't know if it was just or we're just gonna have Power Games because that's the only album we like, but I didn't know it
Mm.
was a copyright thing, and
Well,
that really is
yeah,
unfortunate.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, you know, I love Spotify. I must admit, I do have a battle. I'm torn with Spotify because of the artist pay. You know, I do believe it's not great for the artist, so I'm kind of torn between not wanting to like it and liking it really. One from a fan point of view, which I think is brilliant, but from an artist point of view, I'm not so happy about it. Um,
You're 100% right, especially a lot of the
mm,
newer bands coming up
mm,
in just like music in general. It just it'll
yes,
pay you pennies, you know, for
yeah,
millions
well,
of
exactly.
streams.
Yes, exactly. It's
Ridiculous.
ridiculous. It's completely out of proportion. And but I don't know. Is it ever going to change? You know, I mean, every people like Elton John are always trying to publicize the injustice of it, but nothing seems to change.
It
Um,
really hasn't, which is unfortunate. But it does, you know, on the plus side of it, it does give a lot of foreign bands some exposure now, because
Yeah.
now it's not, what does your record store have? What is the radio playing? It's like you can just go down this whole rabbit hole, and like there's metal from everywhere. A lot of funny enough, a lot of Brazilian bands are really, like Crypta, for example, are
Yeah,
really
yeah,
doing very well. And then
yes,
are
yeah,
saying that
tremendous.
Spotify definitely helped them, but unfortunately, Spotify, can do whatever they want, and they're like, you know what, I don't.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah,
We're just
yeah.
gonna. It's like Napster. But it's legal. I
Yes,
don't know.
Napster Take Two, isn't it? Really?
It really is. So,
Yeah, yeah.
Jaguar, it's 2023.
Yes.
Could we ever expect a new release with the last album with 2024, almost 10 years since
Yeah.
Metal X? Is it something you're
Well,
interested in at all, or are you just trying to still, like,
well,
get some of the older material out there still? What is
well,
the current mindset?
well. Obviously, the difficulty certainly, in the last 5 years, the band's been pretty much dormant, and it's my fault, Brandon. Me being here in Brazil, the two guys in the UK, the bass player and drummer Nathan and Simon, are in the UK, and we did a bunch of gigs before I came out here in 2018, and we had our friend Jarvis from Night Demon singing for us. I don't know if you knew that. Not Jarvis Leatherby from Night Demon.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yeah.
yeah, he kind of, he came and sang with us. Basically, we did some shows with Jarvis, and they were great. Um, but it was kind of only sort of temporary, really, because I was coming here, and I kind of spoiled it, if you like. I accept that it's my fault that we I mean, it's the logistics of it as well. It's so difficult to keep things going. I mean, we were gonna be playing some stuff last year in Europe, but with the coming out of COVID, flight prices were so expensive. We just couldn't we couldn't do it. It was just too expensive for me to fly over, meet up with the guys in England and rehearse, and then go to Germany to do the shows. But we actually recruited, and Jarvis, of course, is so busy with Night Demon. They're always touring and stuff, so it's difficult for him to kind of find the time as well. But really, in all honesty, Brandon, I don't really see anything else happening, to be quite honest.
You've done enough in your life, I feel.
Well,
You've lived
it's
several
been a journey
lifetimes,
getting
I
here,
feel.
that's for sure. I've lived in a bunch of different places around the world, and always moving and stuff, and I'm kind of fed up with that now. I just want to stay here, really. And to be quite honest, Brandon, I'm not. I'm making other music these days. I'm not. You know, not music that's not metal, basically. Got a little studio here, which is still getting together. And I really enjoy playing other stuff, and well, writing other stuff as well. But I don't know. Never say never. Let's say if something came along that was really too good for us to not do, then well, we won't do it. Um, but
Yeah,
I'm just grateful, really, and that all these years later, people still remember the band. It's amazing, isn't it? All those years, people still, remember us. It's amazing, actually.
yeah. Here we are, like
Yeah,
40 years later.
yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, I can understand, bands like Deep Purple are always going to be known, remembered, but us, little Jaguar, people still remember us. It's amazing, you know. But yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know, Brad. No,
Well,
we'll see. I might do something down here, actually, in South America, possibly, because as you said, there's some great musicians here, great bands. So I might do something here, but even that, I don't know. I don't know. You
yeah,
know,
I just asked because we have like
yeah,
Tigers. have a new release. Raven dropped an album.
Yeah,
Tokyo
yeah,
Blade dropped a release.
yeah,
There's almost been
yes.
this like resurgence,
Mm,
weirdly enough, for
mm,
the scene. But
yeah.
there's nothing wrong with having your own
Mm,
projects, not
mm,
being metal.
mm.
You know what I mean? There's so many
Yeah.
amazing music's such a
Mm,
wide spectrum, and there's so
yes.
many amazing things you can do with it. Are there any current projects that you have music that you've shared that people can check out, or is it more just an independent
Well,
venture?
what? Yeah, I mean, cut a long story short, COVID hit. We were here when COVID hit, and I thought, well, okay, what am I going to do now? And I basically, what happened was I decided to teach myself how to make music, essentially on my laptop, because I'd never really done that. I've never been interested in the more of the technical side of making music. So I thought, right, I'm going to teach myself how to do this. I've started from scratch, about DAWs, virtual studios and all sorts of things. And it's been a huge learning curve. So I decided to do that. That was probably, I started that in 2020, I suppose. And basically, since then, I've just been trying to, basically, I'm writing kind of like electronic stuff, basically. You
Cool.
know, I love old, old school rap, and the beats and the sort of drew me to a lot of electronic music. Electronic stuff like Depeche Mode has always been my guilty pleasure, if you like. Putting their albums up my jumper and stuff so no one can see. Up my sweat.
Nothing
and
wrong. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong. I
no,
like
and
a lot of that old school rap, like Wu Tang and stuff, and like that album
yeah,
Illmatic. I think it's a masterpiece.
yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Music
But
again, like every genre, I love, except
it's
like
it's
maybe
the
K-pop.
hard
But
beats that just get me every time. Just and I hear a hard beat, just wow, what's that? What's that? And the stuff I make, I think my wife says, "Oh, the drums are too loud again." I said, "I know, I can't help it because But
yeah,
I'm really teaching myself to try and write better and better songs. But I do, and it's yes, it's all electronic, but I'm when I think it's good enough, I'm going to try and put it out there anyway. But I haven't done so yet. I've let a few people hear some songs to try and get some feedback from friends who that are in that area of the industry and stuff. But I don't know. Again, I don't know whether to use my own name or another name But I'm just I think each song I write, or song or tune, whatever you want to call it, it gets better and better. But I've started from zero 3 years
yeah.
ago.
Well, it's
I
okay, and
absolutely,
I'm just happy you're making music. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
I love it.
Even no matter what it is, at least you're doing stuff, being creative, and it's really awesome to see. Gary, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much for
Mhm.
doing this,
Oh,
man.
thanks for having me, Brandon. I've really enjoyed talking to you. It's been brilliant. Thank you so
Great
much.
conversation. What's the best way for like fans to keep up with like everything you're doing? Any music, maybe where to follow Jaguar,
Well,
how to stay updated.
Well, I mean, you mentioned YouTube. We put there's everything on YouTube. So there's a Jaguar channel on YouTube. So we're easy to find on there. You search for Jaguar NWOBHM, of course, and you're going to find all our stuff. But we pretty much everything Jaguar wise is on there. Everything we've done, all of the releases are there. Instagram as well. Of course, we've got an Instagram account going there as well, and we're always trying to keep that up to date. Although we've lapsed a bit recently because we've been so busy trying to get this house sorted. But we're going to get back in the saddle there. But yeah, so really Instagram, YouTube. Well, it's good. We've got a Facebook page and a Facebook group as well. So we're there, in the usual channels, really, Brandon.
Cool.
But yeah,
Awesome.
we still, we still get lots of emails and all sorts of people, making contact with the band, and it's great. I always I'm always doing interviews and stuff like that. And I'm happy to talk to fans. And here in Brazil as well, there's a lot of Jaguar fans here actually, and it's weird, since before I came here in 2018, we didn't have any Jaguar albums released nationally. They were all on import as such. But
Yes,
since we've
yeah.
been here, Power Games has been released, Holland 82, Run Ragged, and Metal X. So it's, available nationally.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's weird, really weird.
Yeah, and
But
you guys definitely deserve all the recognition. Especially, I saw you like met with Hetfield recently
oh
too.
yeah, did you see that? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that
Where
was
like you were
that
playing
was
riffs and he was
surreal.
singing the songs.
Yeah, he was singing. He's singing Dutch Connection.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was on camera. I said, "Do you want to join my band?" And he's laughing.
Yeah.
We had a really great evening with James and Lars. They were fantastic, I have to say. They were super cool.
It's
Super
it's
cool.
really it's really awesome because like regardless of yeah, it's like all right, I'm glad this little album we put out in like the early '80s, but like
Yeah.
seriously, Jaguar like and a lot of these bands helped and were the first dominoes to fall to like create this huge global movement. So if it wasn't for you guys, it wouldn't be for so many bands today who are like globally massive. And you guys definitely deserve as much recognition as possible. So I'm trying to do
Bless
my
you,
part.
Brandon. Bless you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank you
this has
so
been
much.
awesome. My name is Brandon Battick, and this is Disturbing the Priest.